1 2 1 2. Test 1 2 1 2. Coming in live and clear. Looks like we are coming in nice and live. All right, this is looking good. Test 1 2 1 2. Test 1 2 1 2. Coming in live and clear. All right. We're just gonna wait for a good friend to come on over. Let's see. Yeah, here we go.
Hey,
Real.
how's it going?
Hey, can you hear me? I'll keep talking just
Oh,
to
wait, hold
give
on. Let
you a
me. I
chance
think
to test.
something's up with my headphones real quick.
On
I
my
wasn't able
end,
to
it
hear
says
you.
that your microphone is on, but can you hear me?
Okay, yeah, should be all good now. Sorry
You can
about
hear me?
that.
Awesome. Gabriel,
Yeah,
may
yeah,
you please say something? I just want to make sure I can hear you also.
yeah, for sure. Hello. Testing. Can you hear this?
Yes, you're sounding good, man. You're coming
Okay,
in loud
cool.
and clear.
Awesome.
Awesome, man. How are you today?
Doing good. Yeah, just got off work and got some exciting YouTube stuff planned. So, looking forward to working for the rest of the day.
Awesome, man. Gabriel, please let me know if I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Is it Carusetta?
Yeah, it's pretty close. Carusetta is usually, I think that's actually the correct way, but the way my family says it is not the correct pronunciation, which is Carusetta. But yeah, that's actually really close. It's more better than what most people do. So yeah,
Gotcha. Is that Spanish?
it's actually Italian, but I am
Very cool.
Hispanic. So
Very cool, man. Well, I
yeah,
can't say thank you enough. It's an honor to have you here. I am recording right now
dope.
via Riverside. Before you, I never heard of Riverside. I thought we were
Oh
going
yeah,
to do this via Zoom or Google Meets. So you got
yeah.
me up to the 21st century, man, because this is really nice.
Yeah, for sure. No, I like it. I like it's totally free. I think there might be some like advanced features you can pay for, but um, yeah, I first found out about it like through like some YouTube ads, and then like from like my boss was like getting booked for podcasts, and then they all
Yeah,
started using it. So I was like, oh, this is like actually like a real tool. Like, so yeah, glad you like
that is
it.
cool. I love it. I'm over here in my super hot Phoenix, Arizona garage. So I'm going to turn
Oh
this
yeah.
loud fan off.
Oh my God, yeah, I can imagine.
I've
Um,
been I've been looking for a cool setup in my home. I
yeah.
know I wanted to have something that gave me a little bit of depth. So
Oh
I'm
yeah.
literally
No,
in
it's
my
good.
garage, threw a lamp up, and I said, okay, let's make it happen.
No, it's good. I like the depth. Yeah, I like the. Are you filming with a camera lens right now, or?
I am. I'm recording with the Blackmagic Pocket 6K.
Oh, I love that camera. That's
Yeah,
dope. Yeah,
I love it. I do too, man. Before this, I had the 4K for a few years. I actually shot
yeah.
two features with the 4K.
No
Loved
way.
it. And
Yeah,
I said, okay, it's time to upgrade. So I
yeah.
went and grabbed the 6K, and I am very happy here. I don't
Nice.
nothing
Yeah.
else that I need in terms of being an independent filmmaker. This is
Hmm.
perfect. Teaching students cinema, this is perfect. So all around, it's a great
Yeah.
camera. And in April, Blackmagic, the new 8.6 update now allows the Pocket
Mm.
cameras, all the Ursa cameras, and all the Blackmagic cameras in general to be webcams now.
Oh,
So
that's awesome. I did not know that. That's cool.
Gabriel,
Cause I have a Blackmagic as well. That's what I shoot on.
nice. What kind?
It's the 4K. Yeah.
It's a
But actually,
B7K,
at
right?
work, I shoot with the 6K. But like, yeah, it's solid all around. Like the UI, everything about it. It's so great, especially for teaching. I think like that's how I learned how to film. And if I learned how to film like on a Red or anything else, I would not probably have not learned how to film. So
Absolutely. Well,
yeah.
that is cool. I didn't, with all due respect to you, I had no idea that you knew about cameras. So
Oh
you're just
yeah,
a book of knowledge, man. You're just peeling back the layers,
I
Gabriel.
appreciate it. Yeah.
Well, Gabriel, I don't want to take all your time. I am so grateful to talk to you. How I found out about you is I have
Mm.
a YouTube channel, my own YouTube channel I use to record my lectures when I
Hmm.
teach, and I make short content out of it, give it away for free because it's a
Yeah.
great learning tool. It's a great way to meet new people, and also at
Definitely.
the end
Yeah.
of the day, it's a great way to market my films.
Hmm.
So I really love YouTube for all the things YouTube, and by being an avid shorts uploader, I'm always coming across new channels and new content. And one day I came across one of your long format videos talking about Hollywood and
Yeah.
what is the new era of Hollywood. And it was intriguing enough, the title, that I clicked on it and I saw this young man with a very stoic personality and a very smooth voice talking very matter of factly about Hollywood. How is Hollywood changing? And the video in particular that I was watching is YouTube now bigger than Hollywood? And I was like, who is this dude? Because this is fascinating. And he's asking the kind of questions that a lot of people aren't asking. And when you surmounted the subscribers that Mr. Beast has, being only 1.5 million less than the total amount of paid subscribers Netflix has, and you ask the question, is YouTube bigger than Hollywood now? I said, okay, I've got to talk to this guy. So it was going to be a treat to my class last week, our last day of face-to-face, to get a chance to talk to you just because it was a screenwriting course, both of my classes last semester. I said, I think Gabriel is a world of knowledge and he'd be able to give them some great information as to how to get into Hollywood, because Hollywood is so different than that of our parents and grandfathers' Hollywood. With the digital era, with the DIYers, and with YouTube, things are changing, and I think you have an amazing cusp on what's coming next. So I wanted to just get a few minutes of your time to dive deeper into that. Find out what it is that you think film students, whether they're at Grand Canyon University where I teach, or any college in the country, what is it that the American audience is looking for? And the reason why I'm centralizing it to America is because I know in North America, we are the poster child of movies, even though movies are made all over the world. So I think it's not easy to say, hey, what I'm going to tell you applies to Bollywood, to Nollywood, to Hollywood. It's like, they're different. So I just wanted to get into your mind and find out, what do you think a student who just completed a screenwriting course should do next? Let's say they are novices when it comes on to cinematography, directing, editing. They just know how to write something. And before we get into that, I just want to let everybody know, Mr. Gabriel is a graduate of Duke University. He started at Duke as an engineering student and then had the coming to Jesus moment where he's like, I don't want to be an engineer. I want to be a filmmaker. Transitioned into film and is currently, or I don't know if the transition has happened yet, about to start working at an agency in Los Angeles. Is that correct?
Yep, in September.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, appreciate it.
Is you a director or a cinematographer? Is that the end goal?
So actually, yeah, for a while I thought that I wanted to be a cinematographer. Actually, was like the thing that I was like, it was cinematography. Then I got into screenwriting. Then I was like, okay, I want to direct. And then it was producing because I was like, I'm interested in the business side of Hollywood. And then right now I am actually focused on being an agent, but I'm also building a business at the same time. So I'm hoping to sort of weave those two together. But most people who work at agencies actually don't want to be agents. And I can offer advice later on about like talent agencies and that whole world, and offer some advice when it comes to that. Yeah, to sort of like answer your question about like what a student who's studying screenwriting should do if they want a job in Hollywood, right? And also feel free to put any of your students, if they want to reach out to me or like have any personal questions, feel free to just pass along my contact info. I'd be more than happy to talk to any of them.
This semester, Gabriel, you sure?
I think, yeah, I love talking with people who are interested in it. So like, if there's any advice that I have that can be useful for them, I'd love to like talk with them. So I think when it comes to like having a career in screenwriting, I think there's two things that you might want to be thinking about. One is, do you want to work like in Hollywood, or do you want to just generally write scripts, write stories? And I think if you generally want to write scripts, write stories, I think there's lots of ways you can do that isn't in Hollywood, right? Like I think one of the things I've been talking about is YouTube becoming huge, right? There's lots of narrative channels, nonfiction channels on YouTube, where if you want to get involved in screenwriting or get involved in writing stories, I think there's massive opportunity there because that's a lot less like gate kept, right? Like you'll have to be a little bit more innovative in terms of like who you reach out to and how you find opportunities there. But there are lots of YouTubers who are looking for script writers, looking for people to help them write stories. I think when it comes to like you want a job in Hollywood, I think one piece of advice that I think I've received, and I'll take a bit of this with a grain of salt, in that I've done lots of internships and like I've been to LA. I have a lot of friends in the industry, but I haven't actually like worked a full time job in Hollywood yet. So maybe my perspective will change after that. But the advice that I've gotten from lots of people is that if you want to be a screenwriter, there's really one place where TV writing specifically happens, and that's when people think of screenwriting right now. The way that people are making money is TV writing, or at least the way that people used to be making money. Because as we'll probably talk about further on, Hollywood is going through a lot of shifts right now. A lot of things are changing in terms of the structure of Hollywood. In the 2000s, it was spec writing for feature films. That was how screenwriters made their money, and you could make hundreds of thousands of dollars writing spec scripts, right? So these were scripts that you wrote that were sold to studios, and they bought the option to make it into a movie. They didn't even necessarily make it into a movie all the time. In fact, probably 1 out of every 20 spec scripts actually made it through development and became a movie. But they just, because there was such a zeitgeist around original IP at the time, um, they were willing to sort of spend these, before, like you'd never seen these prices, but then scripts would get sold for $100,000, $200,000. And I think the average is about $50,000 for a spec script that you sold to a studio. And so that was a real way to make a living. That basically changed in the last 10 to 15 years. We've seen a huge shift to IP. Like original films aren't really like bringing in that money. It's really like franchise films. And so spec scripts aren't really a thing anymore. Like they're still being sold and they're still being bought by studios, but that wasn't really a way to sustain yourself as a screenwriter. But we did see the huge shift in like the streaming wars, right? So we saw Netflix become a huge player and start to pour hundreds of millions of dollars into making all these shows. And to do that, they needed to employ writers. And so TV writing became a huge way for people to establish a career. And for decades, TV writing has had a more sort of like, there's a career path there, right? And so I'd say like for someone who's interested in screenwriting in general, I'll say like TV writing specifically, because that's the profession of screenwriting that has the sort of like a standardized career path. You start out as maybe like a intern or an assistant to a writer, right? So you just want to get as close to the writing room as possible, the room where all the TV episodes are actually being written. And it might take you a bit to actually transition from being a writer's assistant. So as that role, you'll be like doing a lot of administrative tasks, right? You'll be like an office assistant, and you won't necessarily be writing scripts, but you'll be like in the room where it happens, which is incredibly important. And then your next position after that, you'd want to be a staff writer, right? And that's still a very like entry level role, but it's the way that you can actually get a writing credit, right? So if you're a staff writer, then maybe one of the episodes you contributed to it in a big way, and then you get like a writing credit for it. And then now you have a writing credit. That is something that you can then use to establish membership in the WGA. And entering the WGA is really, if you want to be a screenwriter, that is what you have to do. You have to enter the WGA because that's how you get health insurance and that's how you get paid fairly. So I'd say if you're interested in screenwriting, the WGA is probably the organization that couldn't best help you, because they have resources that teach aspiring writers about like what types of programs they have and things of that nature. So, and then there's I can go into more specifics too, but there's like lots of programs as well. So there's, like I said, there's a lot of changes happening. So some of these programs are being shut down. Some of them still exist. Some of them are being restarted. But like emerging writers programs where you can apply and be a part of like a fellowship. And then at the end of the fellowship, the idea is that they train you, and then you are like have first picks for like upcoming shows that are staffing that need writers. And so entering this fellowship, like if you do a fellowship at Warner Brothers, for example, Warner Brothers Television, um, then you'll get to meet like studio executives or showrunners who are making Warner Brothers shows, and then you'll be in a much better spot to get those jobs than someone who hasn't done that fellowship. So those are a couple examples.
Gabriel, I hear the young people when they are dialoguing and pontificating and giving each other good information, they say they're chopping up game. You are
Okay.
chopping the game up so well right now, my man.
Oh, I
I
appreciate
really
it.
appreciate this information. What about the other side? We are seeing filmmakers, independent filmmakers with micro budgets, $10,000, $20,000, $50,000 budgets, getting a return on their investment of 100K, 200K through Tubi. Now, Tubi might go away tomorrow. Fox might pull the plug and say, hey, no more Tubi. But there'll be another platform that was going to follow the same AVOD
Yeah.
model. What about the guys and girls who are not interested in the traditional Hollywood trajectory? They want to remain independent and operate just as LLCs. Is there an advantage to that you're seeing? Is there a disadvantage that you're seeing? The to the creatives who aren't here for an Academy Award, they're here to make a living doing what they love. Do you think that's sustainable? Good idea, bad idea? What are your thoughts?
So I think you mentioned Tubi, which is super interesting because they're a platform that I think is definitely going to stick around because they've seen tremendous growth over the past year. And I think people really gravitate towards that. We're free all the time. We're never going to charge you. And they have a very passionate community of people. They're pumping out more and more movies every year. So I think that's super interesting. And that could create a shift where more and more people are able to make these micro budget feature films for streaming services like Tubi. And so I think there's always going to be demand from people to watch films, television, different types of media. What it looks like is changing right now. I'll say that in terms of making a living, I think if you're in film or television because you want it to, you think it's the most profitable avenue, you can make money, and there are lots of people who are making money. But I think the reason you should be doing it is because of passion, and because you can't really see yourself doing anything else that's different. And so I will say it's not necessarily for the faint of heart. So I think if if you're someone who's like maybe considering it, definitely try it. Like give it a solid chance, right? Because it might be like for me, it was the thing that I was hooked to it, and I was like, this is what I needed to do. But if it's not necessarily that, there's tons of ways to make a living through film adjacent things that are, like you're saying, not necessarily like Oscar winning feature films. But a lot of those will be like on the commercial side of things, right? So maybe that looks like creating content for a business, right? And so if you're a filmmaker, one of the best ways to make money as a filmmaker is not to necessarily sell your services to the consumer, right? So, that is a way to make money, right? You can make a $10,000 to $50,000 film, maybe distribute it yourself even, right? And if you do a good enough job of marketing, I've seen people who, they're able to maybe take their film to a festival, get it seen by people. And if you're willing to put in the work, like you can make that happen. But that is a lot of work, and that does take a lot of experience. If what you love is like the filmmaking part of it, right? You love being around cameras. You love, recording on set, right? You love the vibe of being on set. You don't necessarily need it to be like a narrative feature for you to enjoy it. And so I think one thing that I would recommend for anyone who's thinking about what they want to do as a career is to think about what it is that truly fulfills them. Because if it is the narrative part of it, right? If it is the storytelling part of it, you can find that storytelling aspect in a lot of different film careers, right? So even if you're making commercials for a company, right? Or even if you're making YouTube videos for a business, or you're making short form content on Instagram or different reels promoting different businesses. I'd say right now, that's most of the filmmakers I know who are making 100K plus are doing it through maybe like a business that they own that provides these sort of services. And that may be a stepping stone to your ultimate dream of, okay, I want to, like, this is what I'm doing right now to sustain myself. But my big project that I'm working on is this 10 to 50K feature film that I'm really passionate about. And so I'd say it's for someone who like they want to get to that point of making a 10 to 50K feature film. Um, Almost every director I've talked to, they all have different paths. Uh, they have all had to find something to do in the meantime, right? So the number one thing you need to always be doing is filming, right? So putting together short films, getting as much experience on set as you can, getting all that knowledge, because then once you actually get your chance, right? Like you find the right producer who's like, okay, yeah, like I'll put 10 grand down for this. And then at that point, you have the skills to actually execute on what you're promising and make a great film. Um, so
Totally.
that's important to have the skills. But also being able to sustain yourself in the meantime is important. And I think sometimes you can uh, like disassemble the skills that you'd need to get to that 50K movie, right? So maybe there's a skill that is going to make that 50K movie a great movie that you're really passionate about the skill that you have. Maybe you can use that skill in the meantime in a valuable way for other people to earn a living, and then that way you're still developing that skill. It's still in the long term interests of getting to this thing, but it is a long road to get there.
In the case of YouTube versus Hollywood, and again, you never posed that question as if to say, hey, these two need to duke it out. You just were asking a very intellectual question uh, with a lot of great information, saying, hey, YouTube may surmount viewership than the traditional uh, big three Hollywood players combined in terms of viewership annually. That's amazing, and that's a great perspective. Uh, what is the vantage point that an independent filmmaker, let's say a young student, they just finished a screenwriting class, they connect with some students in their film department, they decide we're going to take the summer and we're going to produce this 60-page, barely making it feature film, and by barely making it, I mean by the Academy saying 60 minutes, 61 minutes runtime for a feature. How do they utilize YouTube to their advantage? How do they utilize YouTube to get people to watch their movie? Should the movie just live on YouTube? Should the movie live on YouTube and CPix and other AVOD platforms? What is this young person going to need to do to compete against the Hollywood studios with millions of dollars and their $10,000 or less feature?
I think the key to anything on YouTube is to make it authentic and personal. And so, what I would suggest in that situation is to document the journey, right? Which is something that is compelling to people, right? Like, if your goal is like, hey, we're making this huge movie, then the marketing for it can be watch us make it, right? Watch us come together and pitch it. Here's things we learned along the way. I think that's a really compelling format of videos, because YouTube isn't a platform where you post one video, it goes viral, and then that's your career. Sometimes that happens, right? Like that occasionally happens, but you're just leaving it up to luck at that point. If you want to create your own luck, you produce as many videos as you can that are as high quality as you can, and build a following, build an audience. And a feature is a long project, right? So you can use the advantage of YouTube, which is that it's a social platform, right? People are commenting. People feel like they're engaged with you, right? And so you can build up a following, and then the entire time the message is, hey, go watch this movie. And maybe at that point, you build up enough hype around the movie that maybe you can charge for it, right? You're saying, hey, you can see this movie early, and then you can monetize it in some way. Or you can say, hey, this is a movie that serves a very niche, like target demographic. Let me see if I can find organizers, right? Maybe I can get this film screened for a local community, right? And then we get a community of people together to go see it in person, and then charge tickets for that. I think there's interesting ways that you can monetize films. And I think if you want to sort of like use the power of YouTube The thing that YouTube has that none of these other large platforms has is that personalized feeling of the person on the other side of the screen is just a guy like you and me. And people really deeply connect with that. And I think, uh, I think I've seen lots of channels where they document their journey. One of my favorites is the creator of Stan, who he's an entrepreneur. He's graduated from Stanford Business School, and so he made a video about that blew up recently. But basically, he's making videos about his meetings with VC investors. Right? He's making videos about this recent sales call that he's doing, and he's doing what he's calling building in public. Right? So he's putting out everything about what it's like to build this like $100 million company, and that gets a lot of people who happen to be his perfect customer, right? So it has actually helped him to grow, and so that's what I would recommend.
That's incredible. Gabriel, you mentioned the end game for you is being an agent. What type of agent? What type of artist do you want to represent?
Yeah, I think directors. I want so in at agencies, it's at least at UTA United Talent Agency. It's split up amongst literary, so that's directors, producers, and writers, and then the on-screen talent. So that's like all the actors. And I'm more interested in the literary side, so that's directing, producing, and writing. And so those are mainly the people that I'd want to recommend. Um, and to be honest, I don't necessarily know if like being an agent is my end game. I feel like that still is a means to an end. Still figuring it out, honestly. Like I spent like the past 2 years being like, what do I want to do? And like I'm always thinking about like what it is that I want to do, and trying to align everything together, right? So that you feel like you're not wasting your time, because then it makes it so much more fun to work. Um, but yeah, those are the types of clients that I would want to be representing.
That's very cool. What is going to make a writer or a director stand out to you?
I think, yeah, I'm not sure. That's a good question. I think I'll say like the writers and directors who have stood out to me personally, who I've met, the ones that always leave an impression on me are the ones that I can tell have a real deep passion for the work. Like there's nothing else that they want to do. It doesn't matter to them like what
Even
the
if they're
end
not
result
that good,
is.
Gabriel?
Well, I think good writing is really subjective. I think
It's a
like
good point. It's a good point.
um, you know, I think if you have that passion, like you're gonna get good, right? Um, I feel like that, like I feel like that's my mentality, right? Like that type of person who's willing to. I don't really see it as like one person has talent and one person doesn't. It's just like one person puts in the hours and one person doesn't. And so I think the writers and directors who stand out to me are the people who put in the hours.
Man, that's awesome. That question was directly aimed at my students because I start
Yeah.
off the semester by telling them, guys, there's no such thing as writer's block. Even if you don't feel
Mm-hmm.
like writing one day, after all the skills that you're going to compile over the next 15 weeks, you can just plug and play as long as you are formatting correctly and using 3 and 5 act structure correctly and such and such. And
Mm-hmm.
it definitely comes down to passion. Like who wants it the most? Who is writing every day? I love that answer. Thank you so much for that. I
Yeah, for
appreciate
sure.
it. What is it that Gabriel wants to see happen next in Hollywood? And to be more
Mm-hmm.
specific, the directors of Endgame, they
Mm-hmm.
have been dragged for the last 48 hours on Twitter because they made a statement
Mm-hmm.
via representing Marvel in its totality, saying that they feel like there is no such thing as superhero fatigue.
Mm-hmm.
uh, Generation Alpha and Generation Z, they are a new consumer and they are used to doing multiple things at once while
Mm-hmm.
ingesting media. A lot of people said, no, that's not
Huh.
true. The movies are just getting bad. So, what
Mm.
is your viewpoint on that? Do you want the
Yeah.
traditional Hollywood to stay the same, or do you think through technology or through storytelling, there's going to need to be some adaptation for the next generation of movie consumer?
Well, I think regardless of like what I want, I can talk about like what I would want later, but I think Hollywood does need to change in order for it to make money, right? Because currently a lot of the studios are just unprofitable. I think Paramount is the clearest example of that. Like most of their revenue comes from cable. They have failed to transform for the digital era. Bob Backus just got outed as their CEO. Sherry Redstone, who's the family controller of the company, her family has had control of Paramount for the last 20 years. Is now in talks to sell it to either Apollo, which is a private equity firm that's going to probably sell it for parts or merge it with Sony or something like that, or Larry Ellison, who's the son of one of the 10th richest people in the world. So it's going to go one of those directions. And I think that was a bit of a tangent. Sorry. So
No,
Paramount is a good example
You're giving us so
of.
much information. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. So Paramount is a good example, I think, of a company that hasn't really transformed itself for the digital era in the way that it is needed to. All these companies, they all thought streaming was the future. That all they had to do was make a streaming platform, and then bam, they're good for the next like what 50 years, right? Because that's the new technological shift. And I think what none of them really failed to anticipate is how hard it is to actually build a good streaming platform. Netflix has like a ton of data, so they're able to send you shows and movies that they know you're going to like. That's a huge part of why people like going on Netflix, because they can scroll and it will show them personalized recommendations. And so I think there will need to be like adaptations in Hollywood. I think there's going to be a shift. That's why I'm interested in the intersection of YouTube and Hollywood. I see a lot of what YouTube is doing as maybe having an influence on Hollywood. It maybe it'll open up new different revenue streams. I think at the end of the day, like movies will still exist, right? TV shows will still exist. These very premium experiences that you want to sit through and enjoy this hour long, 2 hour long story. I think people will generally have demand for that. I think Gen Alpha and Gen Z, that comment that you mentioned, I think largely is true. I think we as a generation do get distracted very easily. We are. I think it's very easy for us to doom scroll and be on our phones. But I think just like any other generation, we also enjoy that moment of focus, of presence. And sometimes it just takes a better movie to really get us to be focused and be present. I think that's something that as our generation ages, we'll slowly sort of come to realize that we'll gain more focus, and maybe later on, like these Gen Zers who aren't going out to movies, maybe will go to movies like later on. I think that could be a trend that we see. So I think Accenture, I can send you the link to it, or Accenture. It's this consulting firm. They did a study on the media industry, and their analysis of it is that there's no way for Hollywood companies to really just make a small change here or there and maybe like tweak their revenue here or like adjust the numbers there. There's no way for that to happen and for them to continue existing for the next 10 to 20 years. They need to make dramatic changes. And so they gave a list of like 6 recommendations for these legacy companies and these legacy studios. Anything from, adding on sports, right? We're seeing sports as being like a huge sports rights as being one of the pivotal moments of streaming, because right now it's one of the last things that people watch on TV still, right? That millions of people watch on TV, and it's shifting over to streaming in a very sort of contentious way because everyone wants these rights because it's one of the few things that just captures so much attention now. But then, they also recommended like, oh, maybe you merge with a game studio, right? And so at that point, like, say Warner Brothers, they merge with another large gaming studio. Maybe they're no longer just a movie company now. Maybe they make movies that are centered around gaming, right? And that's, it probably wouldn't be that level of studio that's maybe merging with a gaming company. But you saw Disney just do a deal with Epic, which is the creator of Fortnite, for, basically to expand their presence into gaming. And so I think these legacy media companies have traditionally made their money off of movies and television shows and then showing ads for television shows, right? And I think they'll have to find different revenue sources. In terms of what I would want in Hollywood, I would just love for more mid-level movies. So I think like we've seen a real lack of that $100 million movie that is like an original idea, is fresh. Maybe it is attached to a franchise, maybe it isn't. But you can tell that the director got a lot of control. It was made by a passionate crew of people. I feel like a lot of the movies that we've been seeing have been these large franchise films that we've been a bit fatigued of. And I think the reason why it's hard to make that a movie like that good is because of the level of control that the studio has as opposed to the director or the producer or the crew on it. And so I would love to see sort of the creators and the artists in Hollywood have more agency. And I think that could happen through lower budget films as opposed to these huge $200 million plus projects.
Gabriel, I could talk to you for hours, man. This has been amazing.
Yeah, we should do it again. Yeah.
I would love that. I can't believe
Yeah.
35 minutes has gone by so quickly.
Yeah.
I really appreciative of you and your time.
For sure.
I just wanted to give you one more question before we wrap up.
Mm-hmm.
And well, first, how can people find you?
Yeah, so I think YouTube is a good way. You can just search up Gabriel Carusetta. If you look up Gabriel Carusetta on any platform, I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube primarily. I have a TikTok. I don't use it. I have a Twitter. I don't use it. But that's where people can find me.
I know this video will also live on your YouTube in pieces or all as one long format, but on my channel, I'll link you in the description. My next question, or my last question for today's session is, let's say we've got a filmmaker. He or she is successful in the independent world, and we're just going to call it Tubi, even though there's a bunch of platforms. He or she is successful on Tubi. They've built an audience. They're making a return on investment on their movies. Even if it's only a couple of $100s a month, it's a lot more than zero. He or she decides, I think I'm ready to play ball. I think I want to go to Hollywood. How does he or she make that transition?
I think, well, okay, so if they've already sort of made maybe one or two feature films, they have like a portfolio. I think first, before you move to Hollywood, try and network with as many people as you can. I think LinkedIn is great for that. You can find studio executives, you can find agents. I think sales is one thing that a lot of creative people struggle with because it's hard to, it's this idea of like sales. It's like, oh, you're selling yourself, right? Like, I don't want to be like a car salesman or a door-to-door salesman. But to be a successful creative, you have to be a great salesperson. You have to be able to pitch yourself. And so I would practice that skill first off, like practice your pitch, be able to succinctly communicate who you are, why people should be interested in you, and what stories you want to tell, and why you think that they're going to make money, right? Which the underlying reason, you don't have to say like, oh, this is going to make a ton of money, but you could say, oh, I'm interested in telling these types of stories, and I know that they perform well with this, really passionate community of people. And you can tell that based on maybe my movie that I've made on Tubi. You can see it here, right? I would say Hollywood, at the end of the day, is an industry that's run through personal connections, right? So, say you've already moved out to Hollywood. You're living in Los Angeles. Maybe you're splitting rent with some people. Meet as many people as you can, as naturally as you can. I think you can meet people in bars. You can meet people at networking events. You can meet people on the beach, right? The nice thing about LA is that every like 1 in 5 people was probably working in the film industry or knows someone who's working in the film industry. And it's important not just to know like these studio executives and these like producers who are like way up there, but they're probably never going to be in the position to help you, right? Even if they want to, they may be like, well, they may just do $200 million plus movies. They don't have the opportunity to just give you that project. Then maybe they can put you in touch with someone, right? But I think the most important thing is to network with people who are on your level. Find a community of people. I'd say like finding a community probably is the number one piece of advice out of anything that I've said. Even like sales, even pitching. Find just a group of people that you genuinely enjoy, who you share values with, who are good people, right? Stick with them, support them, focus on giving as much value to them as possible. And then in return, they're going to support you and you're all going to rise together and create careers together.
I love it, man. I love it. this summer, do you have anything in particular planned, projects and traveling?
Uh, Let me see. So I'm wrapping up a short film that I just directed. I got to shoot
Nice.
one more scene for it, and then I'm putting that out. And then looking for an apartment with my roommates. I'm going to be splitting a 3 bedroom with a couple of my friends.
In
Um,
LA.
yeah, in LA.
Very
And
cool.
so we're just going to be researching and doing stuff like that.
Well, LA is home for me. I'm from a little city
Oh,
called Bellflower, which is
hmm.
the city connected to Compton. So that's where I
Okay,
grew
yeah.
up. And I'm
Hmm.
just up the street in Phoenix. So if you ever need to come to Phoenix, you got a place to
Yeah,
stay,
for sure.
Gabe. And
Yeah, I
I'm
actually have lots of family in Phoenix, so I grew up
so,
there. I don't know if you knew that, but
no, no idea.
okay, yeah.
That's crazy. So you know
So
about
yeah,
Grand Canyon University and all that.
I do. Yeah, yeah.
What? I thought you were on the East Coast. I had no idea. Like your whole life.
Oh my God, that's crazy. No, yeah, I actually just my family just moved to Houston 2 years ago. So up until 2 years ago, I've been living in Phoenix.
That's crazy. Well,
Yeah,
I'll be in LA a bunch this summer, so hopefully we get a chance to meet in person.
for sure. Yeah, and I'll be in Phoenix this summer, so I'll let you know.
The world's a small place, man. Well,
It
all right,
really
Gabe.
is. Yeah.
It is. It is. Well, have a great evening. Thank you so much for your time. I am very grateful. I promised my students that I was going to email this to them, and I'm sure
Yeah.
they're going to be super excited to see this. A lot of them subscribed to your YouTube channel last week,
Dope. Yeah.
so they are definitely interested in your content. And thank you for what you're doing. Um, God bless, and I will be in touch. We'll talk real soon.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. Super fun. Love the questions.
Absolutely, man. I will get this over to you as soon as it's done rendering.
Sounds good. All right.
All right,
Peace.
man. Take care. Thank you. Bye.